The last transfer. The notification arrived at 3:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. You have received a message from Mom. Sarah stared at her phone screen, the blue light harsh against her eyes in the dim office cubicle. Around her, keyboards clattered. Someone laughed at a joke she hadn't heard. The air conditioning hummed its monotonous song. Everything was ordinary, perfectly ordinary, except for the 11 words that were about to crack her world down the middle. She didn't open the message immediately. There was a superstition in that hesitation, as if not reading it might somehow prevent its contents from being real. Her thumb hovered over the notification. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Her mother was typing something else. Sarah's chest tightened. The second message came through. She opened them both. I don't want you in my life anymore. Don't contact me again. We're done. At this time, you've always been a disappointment. The words didn't land like a slap. They landed like frostbite, slow, creeping, numbing everything they touched. Sarah read them once, twice, 3 times. Her brain kept insisting she must have misunderstood, that there was context she was missing, that mothers didn't just do this, but hers did. She locked her phone and set it face down on her desk. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She had imagined this moment before, and the anxious hours before dawn when sleep wouldn't come, and in those imaginings she had always pictured herself crying, or screaming, or at least feeling something volcanic and appropriate. Instead, there was just this, a vast Arctic silence spreading through her chest. You okay? Marcus from accounting stood by her cubicle entrance, holding 2 coffee cups. He had kind eyes, the kind that notice things. Fine, Sarah said. Her voice sounded normal. Just work stuff. He didn't believe her, she could see that, but he was polite enough to pretend. Well, I brought you a coffee anyway. You looked like you could use it earlier. She took it. Thanks. After he left, she pulled up her banking app with the mechanical precision of someone following a script written by a stranger. The transaction history loaded, a chronicle of love expressed in wire transfers. March 3rd, $850, medical bills, Mom. March 17th, $400, prescription refills, Mom. April 2nd, $1,200, specialist appointment, Mom. April 23rd, $600, utilities, Mom. She scrolled. The numbers blurred together. 2 years of this, sometimes more when there were emergencies, always with the same careful note in the transfer description, as if labeling them might somehow make them transactions instead of what they really were. Desperate attempts to purchase love from someone who had none to sell. Her phone buzzed again. Not her mother this time. Her sister, Diane. What did you say to Mom? She's furious. Sarah almost laughed. The absurdity of it hit her sideways. She was being blamed for receiving a rejection letter from her own mother. The math of family dysfunction had always worked this way. Somehow, Sarah was always holding the bag when the music stopped. She didn't respond to Diane. Instead, she opened her contacts and found her mother's name. Her finger hovered over the block button. 2 years of therapy had taught her that this moment would come eventually, that you couldn't negotiate with people who saw your compassion as weakness. Dr. Chen had said it plainly in their last session. You can't heal someone who keeps reopening your wounds. But knowing something intellectually and doing it were different countries entirely. Sarah thought about her mother's face, tried to conjure warmth there. Couldn't. She thought about being 7 years old, bringing home a drawing from school, a crayon family portrait with everyone smiling under a too large sun. Her mother had glanced at it while washing dishes. Your brother draws better, she'd said. Put it on the fridge if you want. She thought about being 16, making honor roll for the 3rd consecutive semester, desperate for approval. Good, her mother had said. Eyes on the television. Now maybe you can get a scholarship so I don't have to pay for college. She thought about being 23, landing her first real job, calling home with the news. That's nice, dear. Your cousin Angela just got promoted to regional manager. Now that's an accomplishment. The memories lined up like dominoes, each one triggering the next, all leading to this moment, sitting in a great cubicle under fluorescent lights, reading a text message that said she had always been a disappointment. The thing about truth, is that it rarely arrives when you're ready for it. It doesn't knock politely or send a warning shot. It just shows up one Tuesday afternoon and announces that your mother never loved you the way mothers are supposed to love their children. And now she doesn't even want to pretend anymore. Sarah picked up her phone and typed a response. Not an explanation, not a plea, not even anger. Just one word, understood. She hit send before she could second guess it. Then she went to her banking app and canceled the recurring transfer scheduled for the end of the month. $900 for her mother's car payment. Gone. She canceled the automatic $200 weekly grocery deposit. Gone. She went through her digital calendar and deleted the reminder to call about her mother's insurance renewal, the reminder to refill her mother's prescriptions, the reminder to check if she needed money for the heating bill. Delete, delete, delete. Each one felt like removing stones from her pockets before stepping into water. She was getting lighter. Her phone began to buzz continuously. Diane, then her brother, Tom, then Diane again. She turned off notifications and put the phone in her desk drawer. The rest of the workday passed in a strange, crystalline clarity. She finished 3 reports she'd been procrastinating on. She reorganized her inbox. She even ate lunch, though she couldn't taste it. Her body was on autopilot, following the routines it knew, while somewhere deep inside, tectonic plates were shifting. At 5:30, she packed her bag and walked to her car. The April evening was mild, the kind that promised summer wasn't far away. Other people hurried to their vehicles, eager to get home to dinner and family and whatever small happinesses waited for them there. Sarah envied them with a force that surprised her. She drove home to her apartment, the one she'd rented specifically because it was 45 minutes away from her mother's house, far enough to require planning to visit, close enough to seem dutiful. Now that distance felt different. Not a compromise. Just distance. Inside her apartment, she finally checked her phone. 37 missed calls. 62 text messages. She read them chronologically, watching the panic unfold in real time. Diane, she doesn't mean it. You know how she gets. Just apologize. Tom, what's going on? Mom says you're being dramatic. Diane, Sarah, come on. She's just upset. Tom, can you please just call Mom? Diane, this is ridiculous. She raised you. Show some respect. Then around 7 p.m., the tone shifted. Diane, did you cancel the car payment? Tom, Sarah, we need to talk. This isn't funny. Diane, her insurance payment bounced. What are you doing? Aunt Michelle, who Sarah hadn't heard from in 2 years, your mother is beside herself. How could you abandon her like this? Very disappointed in you, Sarah. Family takes care of family. The messages kept coming, each one a variation on the same theme. How dare she stop setting herself on fire to keep other people warm? Sarah sat on her couch and felt something crack open inside her chest. Not pain, exactly, but its absence. Like the moment when anesthesia wears off and you realize the tooth that had been aching for months is finally gone. She wasn't angry. That's what surprised her most. She had expected fury, had imagined herself sending long, detailed messages explaining every hurt, every slight, every moment she'd swallowed her needs to accommodate someone else's selfishness. She'd fantasized about that confrontation for years. But now, faced with the actual moment, she felt nothing but exhausted relief. She was done. The realization settled over her like snow, quiet and complete. She was done explaining herself, done justifying her existence, done performing emotional labor for people who treated her like an ATM with a disappointing personality. At 9 p.m., her mother called. Sarah watched the phone vibrate on the coffee table and did not pick up. The voicemail notification popped up. She didn't listen to it. At 10 p.m., Diane called, and this time Sarah answered. Thank God, Diane said. Sarah, you have to fix this. Mom's completely falling apart, and no. Silence on the other end. Then, what do you mean, no? I mean, no. I'm not fixing anything. I'm done. You can't be serious. She's our mother. She told me not to contact her again, Sarah said calmly. I'm respecting her wishes. She didn't mean it. She was just angry. Then she should learn to control her anger. Sarah. Diane's voice took on that familiar tone, the one that meant Sarah was being unreasonable, too sensitive, too much. She needs us. The car payment is not my responsibility. It's been your responsibility for 2 years. That was my choice. I'm making a different choice now. So you're just going to abandon her? Leave her with nothing? Sarah closed her eyes. Diane, she has a car worth $30,000. She has a 3-bedroom house. She has savings. She has you and Tom. She has her sister and her brother. She has her church community. She has Social Security. What she doesn't have anymore is unlimited access to my bank account and my emotional bandwidth. Those things cost money too. She just never wanted to pay. This is so selfish. Yes, Sarah interrupted. It is, and I'm okay with that. She hung up before Diane could respond. The apartment felt very quiet after that. Sarah made tea, chamomile, the kind Dr. Chen had recommended for anxiety, and sat by the window watching the parking lot. A young couple walked past, holding hands, laughing about something. A cat crept along the fence line. An old man took his dog out for a final evening walk. Normal life. Continuing. Her phone buzzed. Another message from her mother. This one was different. You're making a mistake. I'm your mother. You owe me. Sarah read it twice. Then she typed her response carefully. Every word chosen with precision. I don't owe you a relationship you actively rejected. I don't owe you financial support you never appreciated. I don't owe you access to my life that you consistently used as a weapon. I owe you nothing except the respect of honoring your stated wishes. I will not contact you again. I hope you find the peace you're looking for. She hit send and then blocked the number. Then she blocked Diane, then Tom, and then every family member who had sent her a message that day demanding she fix what she hadn't broken. The silence that followed was profound. Sarah sat in it, breathing carefully, waiting for the guilt to arrive. She'd been conditioned for guilt the way Pavlov's dogs were conditioned for bells. All her life, she'd been taught that her needs were negotiable, that her boundaries were selfishness, that love meant tolerating abuse if it came from family. But the guilt didn't come. Instead, she felt something else rising up, a vast, oceanic sense of relief so powerful it made her dizzy. She'd been carrying a weight for so long she'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. Around midnight, one final message came through before the block took effect. Her mother again, from a different number. You'll regret this. Mark my words. You need me more than I need you. Sarah looked at it for a long moment. Then she realized something that made her laugh out loud in the dark apartment. A sound resty with disuse, but genuine. Her mother was wrong. She had been wrong about everything. Sarah didn't need her. Maybe she never had. What she needed was the idea of her, the fantasy of a mother who could love her, who could be proud of her, who could see her as something other than a disappointment. She'd been funding that fantasy with money and hope, making payments on a debt that wasn't hers. But the truth, hard and clear as glass, that mother didn't exist, had never existed, would never exist. And once you saw that truth, really saw it without flinching, you couldn't unsee it. Sarah blocked the new number and turned off her phone entirely. She went to bed at 12:47 a.m., crawling under covers that smelled like lavender detergent, and for the first time in months, maybe years, she slept through the night without waking up from anxiety dreams about her mother dying alone, or her family hating her, or the inevitable catastrophe that surely waited around every corner. She just slept. The next morning, Sarah woke up at 7 a.m. to sunlight streaming through her window. For a moment, she lay there, taking inventory of herself, waiting for the regret, the panic, the certainty that she'd made a terrible mistake. Instead, she felt light. She made coffee, real coffee, the expensive kind she usually only bought on special occasions, because spending money on herself always felt vaguely criminal. She sat by the window and watched the morning happen. Joggers, dog walkers, the world slowly waking up. Her phone stayed off. At work, Marcus stopped by her cubicle again. "You look different," he said, studying her face. "Good different." "I ended a bad relationship," Sarah told him. "About time," he said, grinning. "Was wondering when you ditched that guy who never appreciated you." She didn't correct him. Let him think what he wanted. Over the following days, the full consequences of her decision began to ripple outward. She heard through a coworker whose sister went to her mother's church that there was drama, her mother having to ask for help from the congregation, having to admit that her daughter had abandoned her. The story had traveled through the family gossip network. Ungrateful Sarah, who'd turned her back on her poor mother. Sarah imagined the conversations, the head shaking, the judgment. She waited for it to hurt. It didn't. What hurt was how long she'd stayed, how many years she'd given to people who saw her generosity as obligation, her love as leverage, how much of herself she'd bargained away for crumbs of conditional acceptance. Dr. Chen had told her once, "You can't make someone love you by being indispensable. You can only make yourself exhausted." Sarah had nodded at the time, understanding it theoretically. Now she understood it in her bones. 2 weeks after the messages, she received a letter at her apartment, her mother's handwriting on the envelope. She held it for a long time, feeling its weight, wondering if there would be an apology inside, an acknowledgement, a bridge. She opened it. "Since you've decided to act like a child, I'll treat you like one. You are no longer welcome at family gatherings. Don't expect an invitation to your brother's wedding. Don't expect anything from me ever again. This is what you wanted, right? To be free? Well, congratulations. I hope you're happy." Sarah read it once. Then she did something she'd never done before. She threw it away without rereading it, without analyzing it, without searching for hidden meanings or coded apologies. She threw it away because it was trash. That night, she called Dr. Chen and left a voicemail. "I did it. I really did it. And I'm okay. Actually, I'm better than okay. I wanted you to know." Spring turned to summer. Sarah started saying yes to invitations she'd previously declined because she needed to be available for family emergencies that were never really emergencies, just tests of her loyalty. She went hiking with coworkers. She took a pottery class. She read books for pleasure instead of just self-help titles about managing difficult family relationships. She slept well. Sometimes, late at night, she'd think about her mother and feel a pull, not to reconcile, but just to understand, to figure out what had broken in her mother's heart that made her incapable of loving her own daughter, to trace the wound back to its source. But then she'd remember something Dr. Chen had said during their very first session. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't mean you have to let them keep doing it. Her mother had hurt her. Not once, not accidentally, but consistently, deliberately, with precision. And when Sarah had finally said enough, her mother had proven exactly who she was. Someone who valued control more than connection, who saw relationships as transactions, who could only love people who made themselves small enough to fit inside her narrow definitions. That wasn't love. It had never been love. And Sarah didn't have to spend the rest of her life pretending it was. 3 months after that Tuesday afternoon in April, Sarah sat in a coffee shop working on her laptop. Across from her, Marcus was explaining a complicated spreadsheet problem that Sarah had actually solved 3 minutes ago, but was letting him figure out himself, because it was good for his confidence. Her phone, which she now checked maybe twice a day, buzzed with a message. An unknown number. "This is Diane, using a friend's phone because I know you blocked me. Mom's in the hospital. She fell. She's asking for you. Please call." Sarah stared at the message, felt the old programming kick in. Obligation, guilt, the desperate need to prove she was a good person by setting herself on fire to prove her devotion. She took a breath, then another. Then she typed, "I'm sorry she fell. I hope she recovers. But my answer is no." Marcus looked up. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Sarah said, and meant it. "Everything is okay." She blocked the new number and went back to her coffee, her laptop, her regular Tuesday afternoon where nobody was demanding pieces of her soul in exchange for the bare minimum of acceptance. Later, she would wonder if she was a bad person for not going to the hospital. She would examine that question from every angle, testing it for truth. And she would always come back to the same answer. No, she wasn't bad. She was just done. Done with performing love for people who only loved her performance. Done with believing that family was sacred simply because it was family. Done with sacrificing her peace for people who weaponized her compassion. Some people called it selfish. Sarah called it survival. And if choosing herself made her the villain in her mother's story, well, she could live with that. Because for the first time in her life, she was the hero of her own. The sun set over the coffee shop windows, painting everything gold. Marcus finally solved the spreadsheet problem and pumped his fist in victory. Someone's phone played a song Sarah used to love. The espresso machine hissed and steamed. Life continued, ordinary and beautiful, and Sarah was in it, really in it, for the first time in years. She had stopped sending money to people who didn't value her. She had stopped sending pieces of herself to people who only saw her as spare parts. She had stopped waiting for someone else's permission to exist. And in the space that had been occupied by obligation and guilt and desperate hoping, something new was growing. Herself. Actual and whole. No longer performing, no longer apologizing, no longer small. Just free. Finally, impossibly, completely free.